welcome everyone to this presentation, Changes and Updates to Automotive Standards. I'm Mike Richmond, your host for Exemplar Global's Excellence in Auditing Expo 2020. Today's session here at the Expo is presented by Chad Kymal, and Chad is a well-respected standards developer, author, and founder, and Chief Technology Officer for Omnex. Chad is going to take us through some of the really seismic shifts that we're currently seeing in the automotive industry, and what auditors are going to need to know to get ready for these changes within the standards that affect the industry. So Chad, thank you for joining us here at the Expo.
Mike, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. So, I look at all these things as sort of having fun. Let's have some fun together. Let me start by introducing Omnex and then myself. If you don't know Omnex, we're a global company headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan. You can see right away, it's our proximity to the automotive industry. So we have been for 35 years focused, in terms of doing work for different industries, especially automotive, which is where we started, and then aerospace, semiconductor, and medical devices. We have 700 employees globally in about 28 different countries. Okay, let's move forward. By the way, I started my career with General Motors and then went to work for KPMG, and then after that at Omnex. And really, I have worked about 40 years in the automotive industry. A couple of things I just wanted you to know. Very intimate with all the different automotive standards, either as an implementer or as an auditor. And for those of you who are third-party auditors, I am a third-party auditor, and I did the first worldwide witness audit for QS 9000, which is today IATF 16949. Let's move on. You are here today to understand all the changes and updates to the automotive standard. And let me see if I can share that with you. Okay. On the left-hand side, you see the traditional automotive. And Mike, really, among the big changes for the audience here is the electric vehicle standards on the right-hand side. And folks, I sort of see people who know the traditional automotive are not stepping over into the electric vehicle part of the business. All of us need to. It's not that very different. And by the way, we do offer a training class for traditional assessors and auditors who want to do, functional safety, product cybersecurity, and ASPICE. We left SOTIF out, which is 21448. All right, this first half, we're going to focus on the traditional automotive, and we'll start with the changes going on in ISO 14001 and ISO 9001. So if you look at this, these are mandatory requirements if you want to supply, products, you have to have an EMS, you have to have a QMS with the ISO 9001 base with IATF 16949. As part of the CSRs, you have to do core tools. And you might say, hey, how come you left the CSRs out? Well, CSRs are changing almost every other month. You see a CSR change, all right? And the second thing that's left out of here are the CQIs. Way too numerous that I did not want to really, touch that for now, okay? With the 20 to 30 minutes I'll be sharing with you. So we'll start with this traditional automotive standards, starting with ISO 14001. Aha. So ISO 14001 is in the midst of change. In fact, there's a working draft that has come out, and I've already, as part of the TC 207, I've already commented on this working draft and given my viewpoints. So you'll see here, the working draft will change into a CD or a change draft, and that will be coming out should have come out about right now. okay? And you'll see the dispositioning of it will be May through June. So commenting period will be hopefully soon that they will be sending out the CD. And the CD will turn to a DIS, or Draft International Standard, which will change into a final draft. And then, of course, you get what is called the IS, or the publication, okay? And there is the timeline is from now, we are sort of already in April, all the way to 2025. So end of 2025, we still have a good, let's say, 8 months and 18 months left, okay? All right. What about this ISO 14001? The big drivers of change are the Annex SL. Annex SL is the harmonizer that's harmonizing all the different standards, and it's going to be affecting not only 14001, it's also going to be affecting ISO 9001, which will be affecting IATF 16949. Second thing they're doing is value-added clarifications, and in each QMS and EMS, they have something called future challenges that they carefully have developed. All I can tell you, as part of the 14001 and TC 207 and the TC 176, we have fantastic people leading the charge in the US. And they're very careful. You know, they're making sure what we're seeing now is editorial changes. There are some substantive changes, nothing radical, and then changes based on this future concepts. A running change we can see in all the different standards is something near and dear. I mean, this is what's happening as we look, outside to the outside world, is a climate change. And you can see that affecting a number of different parts of the standard. For example, in 4.1, we should be thinking of it as an external issue. And in interested party expectations, you probably will get carbon neutrality and carbon footprint, coming to you as part of the supply chain request from your customer. So those are the kinds of changes that you're going to see. And I'll just say this, it's a little takeaway for the auditors here. We're no longer saying high-level structure, we're saying a harmonized structure, okay? And the harmonizer is this Annex SL, and it provides a harmonized structure, is what they're saying. All right. ISO 14001 is changing, and so is ISO 9001. Now, I hope I got the date right, that ISO 9000 2021, I asked Chad GPT that. So that's what it gave me. I hope it's not wrong. Seems to me it is kind of late when when the ISO 9001 came out in 2015. Could that be 6 years later? I know it came out later, but is it that late? But anyhow, ISO 9000 is getting updated. It is an early stage of revision, and they thought they would have a working draft. They're still working on it. So here, their idea was they'll be ahead of 9001, but it's sort of clear now it is probably going to be released after 9001. So here is the status of ISO 9001. This, so far I was talking about ISO 9000. Let's segue now to 9001. So 9001 is, you'll see here, and shame on me, but I do not recall getting we have commented, there was input asked for what kind of changes would we want to see in ISO 9001. But we have not seen the working draft come out, okay? So you can see here, the working draft, so maybe we'll just say this timeline is going to shift a little bit. But if 14001, which just seems to be ahead, is going to come out in October 2025. The goal is that the IS will come out hopefully by the end of the year or the beginning of 2026. Why this was important, is all these factors impacting 9001 is going to impact also IATF 16949. So there are some Annex SL changes. I did a webinar on this already. If you want to go into the Omnex website, you will see a changes webinar on this. If you do not find it, contact us at info@omnex.com and we'll lead you to it. So I just put this in here for you to get an idea of the factors impacting, ISO 9001. Annex SL, global changes like COVID and supply chain, and then a number of different changes that the team is looking at. There's no change in structure. They're trying to make sure there is no major impact, but a number of smaller changes. And this is actually an Omnex suggestion, which is the third bullet. We think companies should focus on enterprise quality, solutions, and also integrated management systems. And again, another great US team working on this with the global. And I can tell you, they're putting a great deal of focus to make sure that the changes will benefit the audience. They're looking at three things: effort to change, benefit to those, the QMS of all of us users, and there's a detailed design spec they are looking at very carefully to see whether something should come in, whether it's in the scope or not in the scope. So with that, what's happening with IATF? IATF is currently in a planning phase, deciding which topics to include and how it'll be changed in the next release. Key topics to be updated and a release plan will be developed by the first quarter 2024. So right now, this is what they're doing, and hopefully they have finished this. IATF 16949 will be released, you can imagine, 6 to 12 months after ISO 9001. All right. Probable dates, March or June of 2026. And, the idea would be if the standard is coming out, the ISO 9001 is coming out end of the year 2025 or the beginning of 2026, you can expect then that mid-year or before the quality summit of AIAG, this will come out. What else is changing? Well, we just did a major webinar last week. So in Omnex, we have several of the writers of the core tools. We'll just say the core tools that went with ISO TS 16949 and the IATF 16949. Now, many of these core tools are getting updated, and the APQP and control plan manuals were separated. And if you're interested in the key changes, here are the key changes webinar. Again, you can find this in the Omnex website. It was a discussion of the key changes by 3 of the writers of the core tools. Okay. All right. The other reference manuals, the SPC and MSA, are being worked on by a joint AIAG and VDA committee. So just like the AIAG VDA, FMEA replaced the 4th edition FMEA, and the SPC and MSA are going to come out and expected by the end of 2025, next year. More interesting to me, so the VDA came up with a software PPAP. I don't know if you knew that. For those of you looking at software, there's a software QA guideline, which the AIAG is going to be published 2024. I'd be interested in seeing how popular that becomes. All right. So Mike, now what we're sort of going to do is we'll segue into the electric vehicle standards. And we have functional safety, which is 26262. We have product cybersecurity. So we have cybersecurity and product cybersecurity. I'll explain that in a second. We have we are having more and more automated features like lane changing or braking, automated braking. All of them need to use a standard called SOTIF 21448. And the SOTIF, of course, becomes more and more and more important as cars go autonomous. Okay. And very much so in the automotive industry, there's an incredible amount of software coming in. And there's a software standard called ASPICE, PAM 3.1, which is changing. So let's talk about all these different changes in this electric vehicle standards. Aha! I asked one of our experts to put together this roadmap. He and I did a webinar last year. This is sort of what it looks like. By the way, this is even asked by IATF 16949 is cybersecurity. So you have this infrastructure cybersecurity, but this is for today. This is not a requirement of the automotive industry, though many of you have implemented it. This is a requirement in many, many, many of the POs. If you're talking about a mechatronic or electronic, well, anything associated that's connected to the outside world could get, the product could get hacked into, okay? All right, so take a look at this and then look at this. So it's called OTA, over-the-air updates. So very interesting concept here in car development is a software-defined vehicle, which means the hardware will be pretty much standalone, but the car's functionality will keep changing because the software will be changed and it'll be sent to the car over the air. So anytime you have over the air, there's a good chance for cybersecurity breakage. But so these are all the new standards, but we'll focus now on ISO 21434, which was released in August 2021. So it's too early for a revision. We're members of this committee, and there's a meeting being held in Germany to figure out what they want to do a few years from now. There was a guidance standard, ISO PAS 5112, for product cybersecurity auditing. VDA came up with a checklist for cybersecurity management systems. They did that really to fulfill a WP29, which is UN standard on cybersecurity. By the way, the US did not sign up to it, but all the European and Asian countries signed up to it, which means all the OEMs in Europe and Asia are implementing WP29, which means VDA came up with this as a way to audit internally and your supply chain. Because the WP29 requires a supply chain to also implement it. And then this over-the-air update just came out last year. So none of these are going to change. No changes here in product cybersecurity standards. It's only thing we can say is there are more and more and more standards. All right. What about 26262? 26262 is going to be going through a major change. You can see they started October of last year, and you'll see in 2027 that the DIS will go into a FDIS and it'll get published in 2027, a few years from now. At Omnex, we are trying to get into several of the committees. We're in the writing committee of this, and we are very interested in the standard. Very voluminous standard. I don't know if you can see the bottom of my hand. Hundreds and hundreds of pages, which makes it a very daunting and challenging standard to understand. All right. All right. Next is the major change in software standards. the PAM 3.1 is giving way to PAM 4.0. So this standard got published last year, and you can see here the VDA 6.3. VDA's scope of PAM 3.1 is 16 processes. To that, you have those 16 processes, which were the sys processes and the software processes, MAN3, 4 supplemental processes, and so on. So we have highlighted in red all the new processes. This should not be in red as well. Well, this hardware is new. Machine learning is new, and you can see machine learning here also. All right. So we're not seeing a big push towards this right away, but the idea was it'll soon start, like in June, July, is what we heard. OEMs are going to start asking for this. Customers are just asking for it and inquiring about it. Meanwhile, what Omnex is doing is getting our instructors certified and our assessors certified. All right, so that's really what we had here, Mike. I'm going to finish up by just saying, hey, look, I told them, give me 1 page of the Omnex's automotive training. Now, you can see here, our automotive training doesn't stop in 1 page. There's a 3rd page, and that's a 4th page. So we have a very comprehensive automotive training, and I would be remiss if I did not mention our software. This was first released, the enterprise quality. I'll just, if you don't mind, I'll brag a little bit of what Omnex has accomplished in the software area. We came up with the first FMEA software. Yours truly actually came up with the linkages between process flow, PFEMA, control plan, work instructions in 1980s. And we came up with the Aqua Pro FMEA software in 1988. Well, of course, that has evolved and evolved. I won't mention to you everything, but things like multi-point faults. And we have AI and machine learning in the software. Mike, isn't that interesting? As the engineer creates the FEMA, the software will give feedback on how they should do it better, okay? We'll do both verification, telling them what's wrong, or we'll do recommendations as they create it. So that's the major big change happening into our software. These are the 14 modules in 4 platforms, everything from enterprise quality to supplier to new product development and integrated management system or enterprise quality software. All right, so in fact, in a couple of months, this whole software platform is going to get renamed with a .ai in the end of it. This is the major change we're doing. We're working furiously with putting AI into place. Folks, this is the email, info@omnex.com. If you have any questions, please do email us. You can even address it to me. They will forward it to me. And I hope this was a good session for you. And I know Mike would like to, ask a few questions.
I would, Chad. Thank you, and good job on that. You went through a lot of content in a very quick period of time. So one thing I'll say though to our viewers out there is that Chad has written a number of columns for us in the Auditor Online, our website, one of our websites where we have our media content. And Chad gets into it a lot on these topics as well, and many others. So I definitely encourage you to check out Chad's columns that he's written for us. And Chad, I'm going to put you on the hook and ask you to continue to write those for us here as 2024
We'll
goes
do that,
along.
Mike. It's something I like to do. It is so strange in that during eras of my life, I have worked with different groups and collaborated and wrote. They always think I'm a part of Quality Digester. They'll think I'm a part of Exemplar.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
happy to do that.
Good. So, one question I did have for you as I listened to that presentation and having read your columns in the past is, so what would we recommend for an auditor? Now, this is obviously a field, automotive,
Yes.
that has a lot of potential for people that are in auditing to, quite frankly, make a lot of money. I mean, automotive organizations have a lot of money on the line. They've invested billions of dollars, and auditing is a key part of this to make sure that their quality is in place. So, what would you recommend that people can do to kind of keep their eyes on the horizon for some things that are coming up, technically as well as just in terms of their auditing skills? What should they be looking at over the horizon?
So here's my suggestions. Many of the auditors and assessors are in the traditional automotive space. Those traditional standards, IATF 16949, 14001, APQP core tools. All of you need a segue. It's not very difficult. By the way, even Omnex is interested in recruiting you into the EV/AV space. Okay, so if you want to become a ASPICE provisional assessor, and we'll get you certified into. It's not that difficult. It's just change request management, problem resolution, which is problem solving. QA in ASPICE means audits. Okay, like that, you have to have man 3 is project management. You all know project management. There are some things you don't know, but you learn very easily by participating. So get involved, get ASPICE first. All right, first maybe if you're an EV/AV company, I'd be happy to give you that training for taking traditional folks into the realm of the EV/AV tools. I have a class for that. Second, become ASPICE certified. Start auditing ASPICE. Then after that, you can become once you take that, you'll understand what is a V model. You'll understand traceability between requirements to testing back to requirements and stakeholder requirements, all the jargon you need to know. So that's my recommendation. Take a transition class that we have I forget now the third-party registrar group that asked me to write it. I forget their name. And I offered it through them for third parties, but it's open for everyone. And then become an ASPICE assessor. Again, we are very interested in adding more assessors. We have about 15 different software assessors right now, Mike. And we're interested in adding more functional safety. Product cybersecurity is very specific. We are interested in people with product cybersecurity backgrounds and so on. So move away from traditional into the new areas.
Yeah, I mean, as you've mentioned, and I've learned from you reading a lot of your content, is it's not really that much different. I mean, obviously EV and electric vehicles. I mean, the systems are different. But if you've audited in this space for a while, you can make this transition, and it can be a very important thing in your career. So
I've seen that in Omnex. Of course we started early. I saw it early. And this is what I told our group. I said, change or perish.
right.
This is what's happening in this industry. You have to make the change because the cars are going from traditional into electric and then autonomous.
Yeah, it's going to happen. I mean, it's an inevitability. So I think that being prepared for that is important.
And embrace AI.
Yeah.
Embrace AI. It's going to come into every facet of your job. We wrote ASPICE assessing software. So we are able to now go into our customer's project, immediately give them a readout of how mature all the processes are. So a major thing that we accomplished. So it's very possible.
Well, Chad, you always give us a lot to think about and chew on. So thank you for that presentation. I think everyone out there watching us really got a lot out of it as well. So thank you for doing that. As you mentioned, your email was included in that presentation, so you can write to Chad at Omnex. You can write to us as well at info@exemplarglobal.org if you had a question for Chad or for any of us on the Exemplar Global team about your career development and some of these ideas. Write us. We'll be happy to respond or forward your comments over to Chad. You've attended the session, so you're eligible for CPD. So check that out. You can get that link right here on your player page. And thank you again for joining us, Chad. Really appreciated your time today. Great presentation as always.
Mike, thank you very much. My pleasure. And thanks to Exemplar Global. Thank you.
Our pleasure. And all of you, thank you for joining us here at the Exemplar Global's Excellence in Auditing Expo 2024. We'll see you at the next session here at the Expo very soon.